Welcome back. During the last month, I read so many "Am I the a-hole? Am I the jerk? Am I in the wrong?" stories that was so crazy, my resting heart rate permanently went up a couple of beats. So in this video, it's only going to be wholesome, heartwarming stories that bring you faith in humanity. And just for the record, if I sound like I'm crying, I'm not crying. There is just excess of water running down my lacrimal gland onto my eyeball. Simple as that. Story number 1. I was in the hospital, knowing I would be there for at least a week, and possibly more. I was sick of hospital food, which is a point I would like to raise. If only governments had contracts with big restaurants, so that the patients would feel their basic necessities are met. Anyway, so I went downstairs to go across the street to the hospital subway. I was pretty far back in the hospital, 6th floor, backside of the building, labyrinth of staircases and hallways to get out the front door. The walk from there to the subway, the restaurant, took almost 15 minutes. Even though it was just across the street, I waited in line, got up to the counter to order, and I realized I had left my wallet in my room. I usually keep my wallet in my back pocket, but there was no need to do that in the hospital, as I was in my room most of the time. I was exhausted mentally by that point from the stay. I told them I had forgotten the wallet and turned to make the trek all the way back. All of a sudden, a nurse behind me bought my food for me, saving me the trip and the money. I thanked him profusely. That was 15 years ago, but I will never forget that act of kindness. Story number 2. I was traveling from the south of England to the north of Scotland to start a new job the next morning. I had taken a train up to London and was supposed to get on an early morning flight from Heathrow. The bus to the airport, however, was cancelled, and I had to make my own way using a series of night buses. However, it was about 2:30 in the morning, and my phone was dead, and I had never used London's night buses before. I was young and a little scared, standing in the middle of Victoria, trying to figure out the faded bus schedule, when a woman came up to me and asked, "Are you alright, love?" And I explained through tears that I thought I was going to miss my flight and didn't even have an Oyster card. She looked up my route on her phone, wrote down all the possible variations of buses and trains that I would need to take, including the times. She waited with me the entire time, like 20 minutes or 30. Then, when the bus came up, she paid for my fare. There is no cash on London buses. I got out and looked to her, and she shrugged and said, "Oh, I'm not getting the bus. You just look like you needed someone. Take care, love." I think about her every once in a while, and I am incredibly grateful for her. There is something about this phrase, by the way. Are you alright, love? Take care, love. It just sounds... Story number 3. I had a knock on my door, and when I opened it, there was a stranger with a gift card to a local garden store for me. Apparently, her kid had been pinching tulips from my garden every day to give his mom. Once they figured out whose garden they were coming from, they wanted to pay for them. I had thought squirrels were doing it and had regretted planting them the year before, not being able to enjoy them. I spent the gift card on more tulip bulbs. Story number 4. I grew up in a neighborhood where you walked or you took the yellow bus. Simple as that. Our driver was Mr. Rowland. He had been driving that route since the wheels were square. Big guy, quiet, wore a navy windbreaker and an aviation frame sunglasses every day, regardless of the heat. He didn't do the whole good morning routine. He just gave you a nod and mumbled some sound. You got on the bus, you sat down, you didn't act like an animal. That was the contract. I was 8, 3rd grade. It was a Tuesday, because that was the day I always forgot my gear. Sure enough, the sky opened up right as we hit my stop. It wasn't a drizzle, it was the kind of rain that hits the pavement and bounces back up. The rain in Louisiana back in the 60s and 70s was unbelievable. Anyway, most of the kids lived right there at the corner. They scrambled. I had about a quarter of a mile of walk to my porch, and I didn't have a jacket or an umbrella. I just stood under this big oak tree near the drop-off, trying to figure out how to get home without soaking my textbooks. My mother would have killed me if those books got ruined. The bus pulled away. I watched the taillights disappear around the bend. I figured I was just going to have to bolt for it and take the lashing. 2 minutes later, I hear that diesel engine growling. The bus comes back around the corner, which isn't easy, mind you, because that's a narrow residential street and that bus was a beast to turn. Mr. Rowland pulls up right to the curb where I'm shivering. He opens the door. Psst, buddy. He doesn't get out. He just reaches over the passenger seat and holds out this ginormous umbrella, the kind with the wooden handle. He looks at me and says, "Bring it back tomorrow. Don't lose it." I took it. He closed the door and put that thing in gear before I could even say a word. Just went back on his route like he hadn't just wasted 5 minutes of gas and a difficult 3-point turn for a 3rd grader. Next morning, I handed it back when I climbed the steps. I said, "Thanks, Mr. Rowland." He just gave me the same nod he gave everyone else. Didn't make a big production out of it. I'm 70 years old now. I have seen a lot of guys talk about being a good neighbor or a community leader. Most of them are full of crap. Mr. Rowland didn't talk. He just saw a kid who was going to get wet and he fixed the problem. That is how you judge a man. By what he does when there is no audience. These days I go on Facebook and I see some punk filming himself giving meals to the homeless. I mean, don't get me wrong, helping the homeless is a good thing. But why do you want to show these people when they are in these vulnerable situations? I wish people would do good things just for the sake of good things, not for the sake of public validation. Story number 5. There was a little girl who lived a street away when I was growing up. I think she was around my sister's age. One day, my mum spotted her watching her garden and complimented the tulips before riding off again on her bike. My mum went back inside for something, or maybe to a different part of the garden, but just for a moment, when she got back and discovered the tulips were gone and spotted the little girl biking away really fast. My mom chased her down, and the girl said she took them because they were pretty. My mom scolded her and said if she had only asked, my mom would have been happy to cut some tulips for her. She didn't sweat it though, because they were a poor family with many kids who all got into a lot of trouble around the neighborhood. They were just flowers after all. A few years later, the girl was diagnosed with leukemia and ended up dying. I think she was 11 or 12. My mum was so troubled by the death. She got permission from the family to plant some tulips by her grave, so she would always have the flowers she loved. Story number 6. I was once traveling through a small town when I stopped at a small shop to buy some packs of water. I was in my early 20s at the time. I jumped out of my car and went to buy. A very old man sat at the shop. Once I bought everything, he took out an ice cream and handed it to me. As I was about to take the bottles with me, he picked up the bottles himself and walked with me to the car so that I could have my ice cream. He was very old, very thin too. And once he saw that I had a younger sister, he rushed back to the shop to bring out another ice cream for her. I insisted that he take money for it, but he didn't take it and just smiled. Maybe we reminded him of his grandchildren, I presume. Story number 7. I was in Walmart one day and some dude was blocking the aisle where the item I needed was located. I then heard him ask a Walmart employee where the wood veneer sheets were. She proceeded to say she wasn't sure and started to send him to the wrong location. I nosily piped up, "I know where they are. If you want to follow me, I will take you to them because I just bought some last week." The man, "Oh, thank you so much." He followed me to the opposite side of the store and I showed him where they are. He thanked me again and I hurried back to the other side of the store to get what I needed. 5 minutes later, at the self-checkout, the man showed up and I saw him just hanging around with his bag of purchases on his arm. When it came time to pay, he stepped up and insisted on paying for my items. I thanked him profusely. At the time, I only had like $50 in my bank account and was trying to purchase food for the week. This man, who I was so annoyed with, helped me so much. I still tear up when I think of his kindness. I'm a single mother of 4 wonderful kids, and this man was God sent. Story number 8. I was driving on the highway. The car in front of me suddenly swerved to take an exit, and then tried to swerve back onto the highway, almost side-swiping me in the process. Luckily, there was no one to my left, so I veered into the left lane and avoided an accident, an inevitable accident. A few moments later, I'm passing her, and she very sheepishly looks up to me, kind of anticipating and expecting someone to cuss her out. Well, I had just learned a new road trip trick. Flipping people off is stupid, but giving them a thumbs down really stays with someone. It's the "I'm not mad, I'm disappointed" off the road. I had a huge ass thumbs down queued up for this driver, but when I saw her face, I immediately knew she didn't mean to. She was embarrassed, and she already felt bad enough. So instead, I flashed her a huge smile, dramatically and jokingly wiped sweat from my brow, and gave her a giant thumbs up. She smiled and laughed, and honestly, it's one of my favorite moments in my life. Story number 9. I had just lost my job, and my dad had his card stolen. He was waiting on the bank but completely out of food and living in an old run-down RV. I would have figured something out. I would die before I let him starve. Right as he's almost in tears talking to me about it, someone knocked on the door. A lady had food for someone in an RV, but these people had vacated the parking lot and she wanted to know if my dad needed any. There was everything from canned goods to fresh meat, milk, pasta, everything. She had bought it with her own money and didn't want it to go to waste. I'll never forget the timing or her generosity. Final story, story number 10. This is the only story that I have read. Of the 9 stories that I read, I really had no idea what I was going to read, but this one I read it multiple times. And I love it. I love it more than you can imagine. Story number 10. My wife is making me lose my mind. I, 53M, have been with my Caroline, F49, for 30 years, married for 27 years. And I'm starting to think I'm losing my mind because I don't understand how one person can be this perfect. It's a quiet Tuesday night, and she's sitting on the couch with a worn-out copy of a mystery novel she bought yesterday, her feet tucked under a blanket. She has no idea that I'm sitting here, pretending to scroll through my phone, while actually trying to figure out how I ended up with literal sunshine. How it all started? Well, we met at a crowded bookstore during a massive rainstorm. It was one of those days where the sky just opens up and everyone ducks into the nearest doorway to stay dry. I was browsing the history section when I saw her. She was on her tiptoes, reaching for a book on the top shelf. A book of poetry. I'm a head taller than her, so I stepped in to help. When I handed it to her and she turned around to thank me, she had this smile that just, I don't know how to describe it. It felt like coming home. We ended up talking for hours over coffee in the little cafe attached to the store, and I haven't wanted to spend a day without her ever since. The thing is, it's not just the big moments. Everyone loves the grand gestures, but with Caroline, it's the little details of her soul that keep me awake at night, wondering how I got so lucky. It's the way she hums when she's focused on her painting. A low sound that she doesn't even realize she's making, which she also makes when the food is delicious. It's the way she always makes sure my favorite mug is clean and sitting on the counter before I even wake up, even on days when she's exhausted. Last week, I caught her in the backyard. She didn't know I was watching through the kitchen window. She was trying to rescue a wandering sick bee. She dissolved some sugar in water and gave it to the bee. She was talking to it the whole time, like as if she's talking to a human. She said, "Hang on, buddy. Help is here. Drink some of this." I just stood there for 10 minutes, feeling like my heart was going to explode. Who does that? Who cares that much about a random insect, which is more than likely gonna die anyway? Since when bees wander away from the hive, it means they are going to die. Well, my Caroline cares that much, so she did it anyway. I find myself doing weird things just to see her laugh. I'm naturally a pretty stoic guy, stable, grounded, but for her, I'll accidentally trip over nothing or make the absolute worst puns. She has this specific wheezing laugh that makes her eyes wrinkle at the corners and her nose flare up. That sound is my favorite song. I would spend the rest of my life being the butt of every joke just to hear that sound once a day. Caroline has 4 tones to her voice. The normal pitch tone she uses all the time. The high pitch, slightly fast tone when she's irritated but she hasn't reached the breaking point. The slow, low pitch when she's very upset or sad about something, or if she's serious about something. Then there is the laughing pitch, where she talks but it sounds like laughter, which is the romantic voice of my Caroline. Which voice do I love the most? All of her voices. I just want to listen to that woman talk about anything. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and just look at her, sleeping. The moonlight hits her face just right. And I get this overwhelming wave of anxiety that I'm not doing enough for her. How am I supposed to match that level of light? I spent 3 hours yesterday looking at different types of flowers because she once mentioned she liked the smell of jasmine. Now, I'm planning on planting an entire secret garden for her in the spring, hidden behind the hedge where she usually drinks her tea. I've been watching YouTube tutorials on soil pH and irrigation systems like my life depends on it. She thinks I'm the calm one, but the truth is, I'm just the guy who is completely, hopelessly gone for his wife. It's the way she handles the world that floors me. When we go out, she notices things I completely miss. She will see an elderly person struggling with their groceries across the parking lot and be halfway there to help before I even processed what's happening. She has this innate kindness that isn't performative. It's just who she is at her core. I remember a few months ago, I had a really rough day at work. One of those days where everything goes wrong and you feel like you're failing at everything. I walked through the door, ready to just crawl into bed and disappear. She didn't ask a million questions. She just looked at my face, walked over and hugged me. She held on for a long time. And then she went into the kitchen and made me a grilled cheese sandwich with the crusts cut off, exactly how my mum used to make it. She didn't need words to fix me. She just knew what I needed. I find myself becoming a better person just by being near her. I find myself being more patient, more observant, and more grateful. I used to be so focused on the next big thing, the next promotion, the next goal. But Caroline taught me how to enjoy the now. She will stop on a walk just to look at a particularly pretty sunset or at a cool looking rock. And for the first time in my life, I actually see those things too. I just needed to put this somewhere so the universe knows that I know how lucky I am. If you find a Caroline, don't let her go. Hold on tight. Plant the jasmine. Listen to the wheezing laugh. It's the only thing that matters. We had our anniversary last month. I tried to do something big, a fancy dinner, a weekend getaway. But halfway through the dinner, she leaned over and whispered, "Can we just go home, put on pajamas, and eat popcorn?" That's the beauty of her. She doesn't want the spectacle. She wants the connection. We spent the rest of the night on the floor of our living room, playing board games and laughing. I look at our life together, the one we have built in this small house, with the creaky floors, and I realize that these are the good old days people talk about. Every Monday moment, folding laundry together, arguing over what to have for dinner, grocery shopping on a Sunday morning. It's all gold because she is there. I discovered that my Caroline is practically infertile 3 years into our marriage, which, to be honest, took a toll on me at first. People I knew told me I should get a divorce and marry again, since I'm still young and I can still have kids of my own with another woman. I've always wanted a big family. After all these years, I cannot imagine a universe where I would do something like that to my Caroline. I'm the happiest I have ever been. The life I have with my Caroline is a life of complete physical, emotional, spiritual fulfillment. I wouldn't trade that for the world, because at the end of the day, I'm just the guy who got lucky enough to be the one Caroline chose. and I will spend every day for the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that choice. I think about our future sometimes, what we will look like when we're 80. I see us on a porch somewhere, her hair turned to silver, still humming while she paints, and me still making terrible puns just to hear that laugh. I see us holding hands, looking back on a lifetime of small moments that added up to something massive. I hope everyone gets to feel this at least once. This absolute, terrifying, beautiful certainty that you are exactly where you belong, with the exact person you are meant to find. Caroline is my person, my home, my entire world. I love my Caroline. This story was so good, that I almost decided to share my own story. The first time I read it, I was like, screw it, I'm writing it. Which I'm glad I didn't. Because this video, it wouldn't be wholesome at all. And it would be close to 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. And it's really just me venting about what could have been my Caroline. Well, that was the end of the video. That was the end of chapter 1 of Wholesome Stories. I hope that at least one of these stories managed to brighten up your day, bring you some faith back in humanity. If you want to share with me your wholesome stories, I will make a chapter 2 about them. Take care and good night, guys.